Yes.
Then you can mute your mic and then we can start. My voice is fine. It's not too hard or too soft.
Yeah, it's fine. I
Okay.
well, it's a bit breaking, but I'm not sure if it's only on my side or
I'm going to jump back there
what.
for the other two students. You can just raise your hand. Is it also breaking on your side? Okay, I'm going to ask it differently. If it's not breaking on your side, can you please raise your hand? Oh, there you say, no, fine on my side. So it's obviously your problem, Tony. So I do apologize. Sorry for that. I hope you can fix it from your side. So I'm going to jump back to the slides, and then I'm going to start with the class. And as soon as I obviously, if I'm going to ask a question, because now I can only see what you can see as well in front of you. So I can't see if you raise your hand at any point. I do apologize about that. So if there's any questions, we'll deal with them at the end of this class. So let's start. Class number 7. Welcome back. My name is Andre Stein. I'm one of the FAC 3704 lecturers. I think by now you hopefully attended all of the other classes, or at least if you haven't attended, you've looked at the recordings. There's the names of the 3 lecturers. I want to put an emphasis on the blue at the left-hand bottom side, FAC 3704 at unisa.ac.za. At any point in time when you have a question on the content of the module, please make use of that email address and contact us. This class is recorded, and the presentation will be available later on my UNISA. Administrative queries. This is all the email addresses for administrative queries that you have. And if you look there at the bottom, that's the general one for our college, is casinquiries@unisa.ac.za. Okay, there's a few slides, ladies and gentlemen, where I'm really going to go quickly through because we only have 1 hour. We've missed now or lost 10 minutes now due to this technical problem, but I will go 10 or 15 minutes later if need be, and if it's okay with you guys. So some of the slides I'm going to stop and explain in detail, and others I'm just going to quickly run through them. Okay, so this session we will focus on the following things: on the exam date and exam rules, the way forward from now until the exam, the examination technique and easy marks, and working through general examples and parts of examination papers. So no technical stuff, but valuable points. So I really think if you are here in the class to grasp, let's call it FAC 3704 principles, that's not necessarily going to help you, but I really believe I'm going to say things that if you consider them, take them into account and apply them, you will really benefit a lot of it. So I'm going to give you a few examples of marking and referencing, and then how to approach a question in the exam, and then what not to do during the examination. Okay. First of all, the exam date. I hope by now you know it is 2 November 2023 at 8 o'clock. So when I prepared this slides, I actually thought, yes, there's still a long way, but I mean, it's 17 October today. So not a lot of time left, but still sufficient time that if you use the time smart, you can really do good in this module. Okay, the exam will be as normal, 100 marks, duration 3 hours. Then please just look at the yellow and red highlighted item, 30 minutes. In the original slides that I've uploaded, I'm not sure if you guys downloaded or printed it. I had the old upload time there, which was 60 minutes in the beginning when we started to have online examinations. The time to upload is only 30 minutes. So please take note of that. Do not even try to take a chance, not just for the students who attend the session, even if you listen to the class later. Nothing that you will say, even if someone comes to me and tell me, but this is what the original slide said, there's rules on the exam paper, and I'm telling you now, if you're going to be 1 minute late, your script will not be marked. We're very strict on this in FAC 3704. By now, you should know how the online exams work. You should make sure your internet and all of that's stable and correct. And you've got 30 minutes after the exam time to upload it. Okay? Look at the bold one. No email submissions will be accepted. So don't even submit your exam paper and then email it to us as well and say, no, but I forgot to add this and that page, or I only submitted the front page. We will not mark any email submission, full stop. Okay, exam rules in your own time at the end of presentation. I've got it for you there. Okay, those same rules will be on your exam script on the day of the exam as well. This is just the layout of the program that we've set for you guys, and you will find this in Tutorial Letter 101. As you can see, you were supposed to start revision on 18 September. So hopefully by now you've already done that. If you just look at the assignment dates, they're on the right-hand side, due date's already gone. So I hope for your sake that you've studied hard and done your assignments so that you have a good mark, because if you've got a good mark, it's already a good starting point for you to get a good mark for this module and to pass. Okay, so the exam is close, as I said earlier, so now's the time to study. Okay, and as I said, I hope you are not going to start to study now. So then just look at my quote there: who fails to plan is planning to fail. So set a plan aside for yourself from now until the date of the exam. Make sure you don't study the day before the exam, because I really believe it's going to be good for you to relax on that day. Then you're fresh on the day when you write the exam. So set yourself a timetable and make sure you stick to the timetable. Okay. So all learning units are important. Okay. Just look at previous exams and you'll see that. So for me, it's important. Make a one-page summary per learning unit, summarizing what you understand. And this should include your disclosure requirements per learning unit, or as a total for this module. Okay. I'm saying there, watch all FASA discussion class videos. I mean here, all the FASA discussion class videos of the past, or all other discussion class videos that is available. But again, that's not all that you need to do. Don't think if you're only going to look at the videos or watch the videos and attend these sessions, you will pass. Then know the disclosure requirements or the layout of all statements. That's your statement of financial position, statement of profit or loss and other comprehensive income, and statement of changes in equity. Okay, this should be memorized. And I'm saying now you should know this. Later on, I'll tell you, we talk about the skeleton. This is going to be the skeleton that I want you to put on paper when we ask you something, but I'll deal with that later. Okay. Then the next point number D, for me, that's actually at the moment, if you've got limited time, that's the one thing that I really want you to do. Okay. Do questions from Tutorial Letter 103. Do it as if you're writing the exam. And when you're done, you mark yourself against the solutions we've provided. And then everything that you've got on your solution that we do not have, and vice versa, you need to question that and ask, but why do I have this and it's not in the solution, and other way around? Why is it in the solution and why don't I have it? And if you can't answer that why, that means there's something that you don't understand, and then you need to contact us. Then mark your paper, and basically I've just said that. Spend sufficient time on that. Make sure every word and every amount that's on our solution, you understand why we did it. And remember, some of the things is sometimes just there for tuition purposes. Okay, but you still need to understand it. Okay, then I want you to identify your mistakes and refer to the learning units or us if there's something that you don't understand. Then highlight your mistakes on your paper and review those mistakes regularly. So if you're going to continue reviewing or studying what you already know, you're just going to waste your time. So that's why I want you to do questions, because if you do questions and you mark yourself, then you will understand or learn what it is that you do not know. And from now until the exam, I want you to focus on what it is that you do not know. Okay? Because if we keep on repeating what we know, and if that's not going to be enough for us to pass, you will not pass the module. So focus on the stuff that you do not know. Then update this summary per learning unit from point A that you have with everything new that you learn. And then at the end, this summary, you review or read that summary, that 1 page, or I'm saying now 1 page, it can be a 2-page summary as well. Then you just review that on a regular basis. Okay. This is just some of the basics that you should know. And if you know the basics and the terminology that we use, you should be able to answer any type of question. Okay. So a few things that I want you to make sure that you know is you need to know what is a subsidiary, and the let's call it the main word there is control. So whenever we tell you it's a subsidiary, or if we say to you the entity A controls entity B through the acquisition of certain shares, then you know we're talking about a parent and a subsidiary. Then when there's an associate, it's significant influence, and where there's a joint arrangement, joint control. You need to, ladies and gentlemen, you need to know the difference between these three things, because some students do not know what the difference between a subsidiary, for example, and an associate is, and they treat it exactly the same in the exam. So if you sit here listening to me and you think a subsidiary and a associate or a joint arrangement, you should treat them the same, then there's something big that you miss. Then you will not pass this module. Okay. Then, as I said earlier, know your disclosure requirements of your skeleton or your framework. If you know that of this SFP, the statement of financial position, statement of changes in equity, and statement of profit or loss and other comprehensive income, it's already, and I'm going to show you later when I show you how we allocate marks, it's already a very, very good starting point, because that will guide you to what the things is you need to look out in the question given to you and what is required. But again, you need to first read what's required. Okay, following important thing, non-controlling interest. If you do not understand what non-controlling interest means and how to calculate it, you miss something big. It always counts a lot of mark. Doesn't matter how or where we ask it. If we just ask a goodwill calculation, you need to know what non-controlling interest is, and it can count a few marks. If we ask the statement of financial position, the non-controlling interest part is going to be in there. If we ask the statement of profit or loss and other comprehensive income, normally there the non-controlling interest counts a lot of marks. And then the same with the statement of changes in equity, a lot of marks. Okay. Then account for consideration at the acquisition and account for goodwill or gain on bargain purchase. You need to understand what goodwill is. You need to understand what a gain on bargain purchase is, and you need to understand what the difference is. Okay. I'm telling you now, these three things, the three red things at the bottom of my slide, non-controlling interest, goodwill, and gain on bargain purchase. If you do not know what it is, and if you do not know how to calculate it, you've got a problem. Okay. So required, you always need to properly focus on the required when you get an exam paper. So read properly what we ask you. So for example, if we say prepare the consolidated statement of profit or loss and other comprehensive income, or do we ask the statement of changes in equity, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So now you know what's required. Then you start with your skeleton or your framework or layout, whatever you want to call it. Then you add the relevant info given in the information in the question to the skeleton. As an example, we ask you for the statement of financial position. Say, for example, only the assets section. You list the assets there, property, plant and equipment, trade and other receivables, blah, blah, blah. Obviously split it between current and non-current assets. And then the information given in the question that is relevant there. For example, the amounts of the parent, you already start to slotting them in your calculation, or maybe in a bracket next to the item, and so forth. Okay. But I'll show you examples later as well. Then you adjust this info with the pro forma consolidation journal entries, and then you eliminate the intragroup balances and transactions, okay, or the unrealized profits and the tax and the NCI effects of it. And then you account for any impairment of goodwill, And then if there's anything else that we gave as additional information in the question, and you need to adjust for that. Okay. I already said to you, read the required properly. We can also ask you other types of requireds. In the first one, I've just said, if I can just go back, prepare the statements. We can also ask you discussion questions. In other words, discuss this or that. We can also ask you multiple choice questions. We can also ask you journals. I'm not sure why I don't have it here. And we can also ask you calculations. Okay, we can ask you calculate the goodwill amount at date of acquisition or at the end of the financial year, or whatever the case may be. Read the required properly. Okay. I said to you earlier that there's a big difference between subsidiaries and joint ventures or associates. If I can just look at joint ventures or associates first, for now, all I want you to know is those two, you basically treat the same. Okay, it's just the name, for example, in the statement of financial position that will differ. For example, if it's an associate, you will have it investment in associate, or if it's a joint venture, you will have it investment in joint venture. Okay, so for now, I want you to know that's the name that will differ in the different statements. The rest, exactly the same. I'm just going to explain quickly one example of why I said subsidiary differ if you compare it between these other two, associates or joint ventures. If you just look at the statement of financial position, if you look at the left-hand side, if there was only a parent and subsidiary, you will add 100% of all line items of the parent plus 100% of all line items of the subsidiary, and the NCI equals the NCI in the statement of changes in equity. Okay, so to just give you an example, if there was property, plant and equipment for parent A and subsidiary A, you will just add 100% of both those amounts. Add it together, let's say it was 10 Rand and 20 Rand, 10 plus 20 is 30, and now you know that's my property, plant and equipment if the carrying amounts was given as 10 and 20 of the group financial statements. That's how easy it is, ladies and gentlemen. But when there's a joint venture or associate, you will add 100% of all line items of the investor or parent. It's actually investor, but let's call it the parent. Plus, there will only be one line item for this JV or associate at the shareholding percentage. Okay, so as I said earlier, it will be the name investment in associate, and it will be at non-current assets. Okay, because this is not a parent and subsidiary where we, for example, in the parent, we own 80% of the shares, then there's 20% left that belongs to someone else. So for the parent and the subsidiary, because we bring in 100%, there will also be a NCI column because we bring in 100%, but actually only 80% belongs to us if the parent owns 80% in the subsidiary. That's why we take the 20% out. But with the associate and JV, it works different. You only bring in one line item for all the assets and liabilities, one line item, not property, plant and equipment, and trade and other receivables, blah, 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 blah. One line item at the shareholding percentage. So if we've got this associate and we as an investor bought 40% of the shares in the associate, that's only 40% of that we will bring in. And that's why there's no NCI. So that's the two things, okay? You will not bring in 100%, and because you will not bring in 100%, there's no non-controlling interest portion that you will take out, okay? So go and read through the rest of these and make sure you understand them. If you don't understand, more than welcome to contact any of our lecturers. Okay, there will be intra-group inventory and or PPE transactions. Okay, so I want you to know the difference. I want you to know the difference between how do I treat a intra-group inventory transaction and both upstream and downstream. And when we say that, we as an example, it's when the parent sell inventory to a subsidiary, it's a downstream or a downward sale. And if it's other way around, if the subsidiary sell to the parent, we call it a upward or upstream sale. So make sure you understand inventory intragroup transactions, both up and downward, downstream, and then the same with property, plant, and equipment transactions. Okay. For property, plant, and equipment transactions, always remember there's depreciation and accumulated depreciation effects as well. Okay. Make sure you understand it. Again, anything that I say, as I said at the beginning, I'm not going to go into the technical stuff. By now, you should know it. If there's anything that I'm saying and you don't understand it, please contact us via email. You can even phone us on the telephone numbers provided, and or make an appointment with us via Teams, and then we can discuss it. If you tell me, but I don't understand the difference between a inventory upward and a downward sale, what's the difference between the two? As an example, contact me. Or I don't understand why depreciation in an intragroup transaction on property, plant, and equipment, why do we need to eliminate the profit or unrealized profit and then adjust for depreciation? If you don't understand that, contact me. But I want you to do the work yourself first, okay? If you're going to contact me, I'm going to ask you questions as well to see if you've worked. And I'm not going to laugh at you when you're wrong. So please take note of that. Okay. So don't be scared to contact me or any of the other lecturers. Okay. And then at the bottom, for all of the above, remember the tax effects and the NCI where applicable. Okay. You'll see because in some instances it will affect the NCI, and in some other instances it will not affect the NCI. Make sure you understand when that happened. Look there at the top. I'm saying they understand and memorize. If you look at the blue block. So for me, it's first of all important to understand it, because normally if you understand something, it's easier to memorize it. Okay, but if you do not understand something and you can at least memorize, but if this is the inventory sale upward, this is what I need to do, and this is the accounts it's affecting, it will also help you. Okay. Another difference that you need to understand is the difference in the fair value method of NCI versus the proportionate method. Okay, so there's only two methods that you can use that we normally give it to you in the exam to tell you the company is measuring non-controlling interest, NCI, at the fair value method or at the proportionate share method. You need to understand the difference. Okay, if you don't understand the difference and what affects it, you need to contact us. And then the same with goodwill impaired with or by versus or impaired to. Okay. So that's also things students, we give in the exam and students do not get it. I think in previous slides, we've already said to you how goodwill or gain on bargain purchase is calculated. So this slide should not be the first time that you see it. Know this out of your head. Okay. And as I said earlier, if you just look at the second line there, NCI acquisition, NCI, if you don't know how to calculate NCI or what it means, there you can see whether it's a question on its own or part of something else or part of a calculation like this in goodwill or gain on bargain purchase, you should know it. If you don't know it, and if you don't know the difference between the fair value method and proportionate method, you might lose very, very easy marks. Okay? Practice regularly. So I said to you earlier, you can go through all the stuff there. Look at the one that I've highlighted or not highlighted, circled in green, tutorial letter 103. Practice regular. If you're going to do a question tonight or tomorrow and you do not look at the solution and you do it as if you're sitting in the exam, maybe you might find some of the things tough, but don't look at the solution and don't look at your study material for now. And first think what it is that we ask, what information that we give, and what it is that you need to do. And even then, after that, if you need to go to your study material to figure a principle out, you're more than welcome to do that, because then you haven't looked at the solution yet. Then you complete this question and then you look at the solution and mark yourself. But you need to do this. The more you practice, the more you will see that certain things repeats itself in all the questions. And that's the easy marks we normally refer to. And if you do that, you will get these easy marks and pass easily. Learn from your mistakes. I said that earlier. If you're not gonna make a mistake, you're not gonna learn. So if you're not gonna practice, you're not gonna see what mistakes it is that you're making. Okay? Don't be scared to make mistakes. Don't be scared to ask us questions. basic exam techniques and tips. Okay. Again, you can go and read most of the things on your own time. I'm going to focus on a few things here. Number B, attempt all questions. Okay. Sometimes we see we've got 2 or 3 questions in an exam question paper, or let's say it's 2 questions, but the 2 questions consist of maybe 2 or 3 parts each sometimes. Then students will focus on the things they think they know, but each question will have easy marks. Okay, so if you waste all your time on something that you think you know and you do not attempt the other parts of the question, you might lose easy marks, and that might be the 1 or 2 marks that you need to pass. Okay. Point C, read what is required and identify what you need to answer, because it doesn't help. We ask you calculate goodwill or whatever the case may be, and then you try to do a type of a disclosure for us. Okay. Then point E, when disclosure is required, write proper words as used in the study guide and accounting standards or in questions in tutorial letter 103. Okay, because when we ask disclosure or prepare the financial statements or disclose the following item, then there's marks for some of the words as well. I'll show you later. Then point F, very, very important. Show your calculations and reference properly. Okay. It doesn't help you've got an answer and we can't see how you get to the answer. Yes, if you've got it 100% correct, it's sometimes easy because then we can just mark it. But if you do not have it 100% right and you don't have a calculation for it, maybe the calculation can consist out of 4 or 5 factors. Okay, for example, amount and number of months and a percentage, and to add something else, blah, blah, blah. Then if you've got one of the 4 or 5 things wrong, we can at least mark the other. But if you only show the total and you do the calculations on a separate sheet there at your place where you're writing, we can't see what you've done, and then we can't mark it. And then reference properly. So if we ask disclosure and you've got, for example, the line item in the statement of financial position, investment in associate, which is normally a big calculation, then you write C1 next to it, or A, B, C, and you then I know, okay, somewhere this student has calculated, and I can go and look for C1 or C2 or A, B, C, D, whatever it might be. Then do not duplicate calculations or disclosure. Use referencing. Okay, so some students will have the same calculation which was used for in 2 different places, and they will duplicate the calculation. But if you've got the calculation for something, just reference properly and use the reference again. If you redo a calculation for whatever reason, first redo and then cancel your first calculation. Sometimes students will have a calculation, draw a line through it, and then forgot to do the second one. If you draw a line through some of your work, these days, most of the students at least do not write the exams, but they do it, for example, in Word and save in PDF. Then it makes it a bit easier. But the same day, do not delete something before you've done the alternative. And then again, do not leave us 2 there. Do not leave us 2 different calculations there, because if you've got 2 different calculations, we just mark the first one or the one you reference to. Okay, we're not going to mark 2, and we're not going to, if there's 2 and no proper reference, see which one is now correct and mark it. So this is not a casino. You need to decide and make a call which one do you think is correct and stick to it. Right until the end, the half mark at the end. So some students will stop 10 minutes beforehand. You've got 3 hours to write. Make sure you write until the end. Okay. I think the rest I've already said. Okay. All I want to say here is on this one, because the rest you can go and read in your own time, is make sure you properly read what is required, and then the red one, timeline. Okay, the relevant financial period or dates. So read properly in the required. Do we ask the goodwill at what specific date, or do we ask the statement of financial position at what date? And then all the information in the question, slot that or put that dates on the timeline that you put yourself, so that you make sure whenever you need to, for example, calculate depreciation, and it's only for a certain number of months, or can't think of something else now, where you need to apportion it something, then at least you've got the correct dates. Or if there was an acquisition, then you know, okay, the date, but whoa, it falls into the previous financial year, so the gain on bargain purchase will not be in the current statement of profit or loss because it was a prior year transaction. It will affect my retained earnings, opening balance, or whatever the case may be. Okay. Read through the question, read through the information given, then read through the required again, please. Okay, then draw up the skeleton. I already said that. Then just the red, no analysis needed, but reference if you use it. This is just why I said that there is some students think if they do the analysis of owner's equity, they're going to score good marks. Okay. We never ask you to prepare for us the analysis of owner's equity. I'm not saying we can't ask it. We can ask anything. We will normally ask something else, and then you may use the analysis as a sort of calculation for the information that you use. But then again, reference next to certain amounts in the analysis so that we know which amounts, that you know where you've used them. Okay? Because if you've just got an analysis and we do not know which of these amounts that you use and you did not reference properly for us, we can't help you. Okay? So then we can't mark it. So students think if they write the whole analysis for us, they're going to score good marks. If you don't use the amounts in the analysis or in the journals, if we do not ask journals, or in calculations, if we do not ask calculations, then it's not helping you anything. Okay? Okay. Answer the required, I'm saying start with the easy marks. Okay, that's the given amounts. But again, if you do not know what you're supposed to do, it's not going to help you to just write all the given amounts on your solution. Okay, so you need to know the skeleton, know what's asked or required. So if we ask you the statement of financial position and you know it's a parent and a subsidiary, for example, then you can start with the property, plant and equipment cost and accumulated depreciation of the parent, and the cost and accumulated depreciation of the subsidiary, and you can add and deduct all those amounts. That's the amounts given. Then obviously later on, for example, we will say an additional information, but the parent sold property, plant and equipment last year or on this specific date to the parent. Then you know, okay, if they sold something, most probably there's going to be unrealized profit. Okay, and that unrealized profit on the one side we need to eliminate, and on the other side the asset value that is higher with this unrealized profit in one of the two entities, so I need to adjust for that. Okay, and then any depreciation adjustments that was not accounted for yet, and so forth. Okay, the rest you can go and read in your own time. The red again, reference properly to your calcs. Okay, I was referring, okay, I'll speak about the calcs later because I've actually got in the slides examples for you. Adjustments, work through the additional information line by line and take into effect the account in your skeleton, as with the intercompany sale of property, plants and equipment that I, for example, just explained. You can go and read this in your own time. Exam technique, go and read this in your own time. General mistakes students make during an exam, please go and read this in your own time. One thing I already said about the analysis, just want to see there at the end. Oh, reference properly. You can see, ladies and gentlemen, I put a lot of emphasis on referring to your calculation, referencing it properly, and not doing calculations or analysis if we do not ask for it and if you do not use that information to answer actually the question, and the question is what is required. Because students, so the emphasis is on that, because the students do these things, do not reference properly and lose easy marks. And then students will come to us and say, yes, but I've done so well. I thought I knew my work and I've written so many pages or typed so many pages. It's not helping if you do not answer what was required. Okay. Examination instructions, all the following few slides is the things that I said earlier. This is rules and stuff of the exam, and that 30 minutes thing that I've talked about earlier. I've given it to you here in the slide so that you can go through it and make sure you understand everything that we say here, because if not, you can ask us before the exam. But all of this, the next few slides, will be available on your exam paper on the day of the exam as well. Okay, but read through it beforehand. Okay, you can go and read all of these. I've highlighted again there, you've got 30 minutes. If our exam starts at 8, you will have, I think, from 7:45 time to download the paper. At 8, you can start to write until 11. It's 3 hours. At 11:30, not 11:30 and 1 second, 11:30, the portal will close and you will not be able to submit. And we will not help you after that. You need to make sure that you submit in time. Okay. The following things it's just general examples and ideas from previous discussion classes or assignments or examinations that I want to go through. Again, I'm not gonna touch on everything. You can go through the slides, and if there's something that you don't understand, you can contact me. Okay, as an example now, that first one, combine the financial statements of the parent and subsidiary on a line-by-line basis. That's when we required we ask you for financial statements, whether, doesn't matter what it is, but that on that previous table that I've explained earlier, it's on there as well, where I said this is what you do with a subsidiary on the left hand side versus with a JV or associate. Okay, just look at the whys that I've put there. Okay, I'm just saying on everything that you do, just ask yourself why, because if you can answer yourself on your question of why, then you understand the principle, and then you will not stress about anything, and you will pass the module. Okay, so in anything that you do, ask yourself why. Okay, number 4, I've already said that calculate and recognize non-controlling interest and related transactions. Okay, non-controlling interest will count a number of marks. It's usually 10 to 12 marks at least in the exam. So make sure you understand it. And please don't hold me to what I've just said, because it can count 4 marks as well. I'm just saying normally it's counting a lot of marks. And then again, eliminate intragroup transactions. When you do it, ask yourself why. Okay, so it's simple. I am the parent and you are the subsidiary. I sold a asset that I've bought. Let's say there was no depreciation, no tax. I bought a vehicle for 100 Rand. And it's property, plant and equipment in my books. You buy that same vehicle and you're also going to use it as property, plant and equipment. You buy it from me for 120 Rand. Can you see if it cost me 100? I sold it for 120 Rand. There's a 20 Rand profit. Okay. So in my books, but in your books, the asset is at 120 Rand. So can you see for consolidation? So if the question why do we need to eliminate it? Because for us as a group, there is no actual profit because we did not sell this vehicle to someone outside the group. That's why we eliminate that 20 Rand. And then the same on the property, plant and equipment. In your books, it's sitting now at 120 Rand. So if we consolidate PPE of the parent and the sub, it will be 0 if I've got no other asset, plus 120 Rand. But you agree for us as a group, the property, plant and equipment is not 120 Rand. There is an unrealized profit amount of 20 Rand that we need to take out. And that's why we deduct that 20 Rand in the property, plant and equipment line item. The same with, in my books, the 20 Rand profit I will have in other income. So now for consolidated statements, we will say my 20 Rand other income, let's say you had no other 20 other income. So it's 20 Rand in total for the group, but whoa, that's not a true profit for us as the group. So we eliminate it. We take it out, we reverse it. Okay. Examples of what and what not to see on the requireds. Okay. For example, calculate the balance of retained earnings at 1 January 2020. This is what we ask you. So we ask you for a balance, first of all for a calculation, then for a balance of something specifically, of retained earnings, at a specific point in time, 1 January 2020. Okay. In the statement of changes in equity of the group, for 31st December 2020 year. So if it's for at 1 January 2020 for the 31st December 2020 year, can you see we actually ask you for the calculation of the retained earnings balance at the beginning of the financial year we're reporting on. You can go and read this in your own time. I've basically said it, so please go and read this in your own time. Just as an example, the first point on the right-hand side, what not to do. So we ask for a calculation, then sometimes students will write there, statement of changes in equity, they will go and disclose it for us. If we ask you for a calculation, you just calculate for us, okay? This is an example if we ask the statement of financial position of a parent and a subsidiary, what needs to be included there. So remember what I said to you, draw the skeleton, and the skeleton includes the company name at the top and the assets, non-current, blah, 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 blah. And then, as I said, you add everything in brackets of the information that was given. Okay, you add, look at the blue. Remember, adding the TBs together, 100%, then we will make the adjustments. Okay, so by just doing this, what I'm showing you here, you will already earn a few marks. Okay, you will add up the totals at the red. This is now the statement of profit or loss and other comprehensive income. Also, just add the totals line by line, and then here there's certain things where you've already made the adjustments. Okay, look at the bottom. Remember, the NCI is a separate calculation and not the profit that you've calculated here. So this profit for the year, 1,299,816, the bold, and the last one, total comprehensive income for the year, 1312053. You're not going to use that to calculate the NCI because those totals are the totals for the group. You need to calculate the profit for the subsidiary so that you calculate the non-controlling interest of those subsidiary or that subsidiary if it's only one subsidiary. Okay. So again, if it's a loss in the subsidiary and not a profit, then obviously that portion of your NCI will just be negative. Okay. An example of things that's now when you start with your skeleton, if I can just go back of your statement of financial position, that's normally the line items given in the question to you. Okay. This is just an example of things that will not be there, but you need to know the principles and you need to know that this is going to be the next, the new line items. Okay. There might be goodwill when a subsidiary was purchased. So you need to first determine is there goodwill or a gain on bargain purchase, and then calculate it and then add it as a line item here. Okay. So if you can just look at that at this, just the description goodwill, you will see that red tick. That's a mark that we've allocated. The same with investment in associate. If there was an investment in associate or joint venture, the next line item. Then to the left of it, you'll see there's a C2, C3 or C4. That's an example. Doesn't have to be like this of how we reference to the calculations. If you look at the bottom, at the current assets inventory, it's another example that you can use. Okay, if there's not a lot in the calculation, put it like this in brackets. Okay, so for inventory, this is, for example, the amounts given 221,000. We give you a mark plus 95,250. That will be, for example, for the parent and subsidiary, another half mark. Then the 1,400 is, for example, the unrealized profit if there was an intercompany sale transaction. Okay, if you put it there in brackets, then we mark it there. So you can either put the calculations there, if it's small, next to your amounts that you, the descriptions of the items that you're going to disclose, or you can use separate calculations like on the top left, there's C1, C2, C3, and C4. Okay. So another example here, the entity name, TET Limited Group, and consolidated statement of financial position as at 31st March 2020. Also normally counts a mark. If you've got something wrong there, if you just say TET Limited, you do not get the mark. It should be TET Limited Group. It's consolidated statements. The next line, consolidated statement. That consolidated word is important. Statement of financial position as at, important. The date, important. Okay. So there you can look at the bottom of the current asset. Just look at trade and other receivables, for example, and cash equivalents. Look at the easy marks that you get there. That's information given to you in the trial balance. So if we ask a statement of financial position and you've got all these things in place, easy marks. Okay. We asked in this question, as an example, only the asset section. So do not waste time on other items that was not required. So you only put in the non-current assets and the current assets. Okay. Reference to the calc, you can see that the red one is one example of a way how you can show your calculation or reference to your calculation. So the red one is if you reference to a calc at a other place, which is not on the face where you disclose. And the second thing, the second example is if you do it, the yellow ones next to the line items disclosed, as I said. Okay. This is an example of marks allocated for certain line item descriptions. So normally because we know, okay, the goodwill or investment in associate, those specific line items was not in the trial balance, then we will give marks for that. Again, there's no rule on this. We decide, okay, if we, for example, say, okay, but the goodwill calculation, there was really a lot of marks in it, was really easy, then we will, for example, say, okay, we're not going to give a mark for the description goodwill as well. That's just an example. We decide how we allocate the marks so that it's a fair mark based on the overall question and the mark allocation of the question. Okay. This is, as I said earlier, just an example of inventory. You started with the amounts given, and then during the current year, Lily sold inventory to Ted, blah, blah, blah. So this is just an example. If you wrote there, for example, less 1,200, then I will not know how you got to it, and I can't give you any mark. But there was a mark for the 20,000, there's a mark for the 20%, and in this case, not for the 35, but sometimes even for the 35 as well. Okay. Then we will allocate the marks there. So if you have the 20%, for example, as 40% for whatever reason, then at least you get the mark for the 20,000, and if there was one for the 35%. Okay. So that, again, just an example. All right. I already said to you, this is an example. If you, for example, have property, plant and equipment, there's not enough space, as an example, to do the calculation at the bottom. You can refer to C1 later on in your script, your exam script. I will say, okay, here's C1, and I will then go to C1, and then I'll mark your answer there. Okay. Okay, I just want to jump back to this. Oh, I see some more people joined us. Thanks for that. I'm glad we no longer only two. So let me just jump back to the slide. Okay, this is just an example here again. You start at the top, property, plant and equipment, of the cost of the parent and the subsidiary less the accumulated depreciation, and then it's the intercompany transaction. Okay, so again, there on the top is the information given. You can see that information given in the question. I've used it here at the bottom in my calculation. And if you show me the calculation, I can award the marks. And say, for example, you forgot about the depreciation. Then if you just show me the 34,000 less the 30,000, I can at least mark that. Okay. And then can you see in the depreciation calculation, the 4,000 Rand? We write there the mark that we allocate, and then CO. That CO means carryover. So even if your profit on the line on top of that was wrong, and you've by accident said 35,000 less 30 and it's 5,000, or if you just use the profit 34,000, I will say, okay, you've lost your mark in the previous line. For the depreciation calculation, I will work with your mistake. And at the end there, the 9/12 in the pink block, that's now because the transaction was, for example, at a certain point. Where was it here? On 30 June, we sold the thing, and the year year end, whatever the year end was 9 months later. So if you draw your timeline, as I said earlier, then you know, okay, but this depreciation that I need to account for is for 9 months, and that's where I get the 9/12. Remember what I said at the beginning, for those of you who joined later, I'm not going to go into technical stuff. I'm trying to help you to identify how you need to approach a question, what the things is, where we allocate marks, how you need to do it in the exam. And that's why I'm not going to cover any of the technical stuff. So if there's anything in the slides that you don't understand why we use it in a certain way, you're more than welcome to contact us. Ladies and gentlemen, it's almost 6:30, but remember I started a little bit later because of that issue at the beginning. So I'm going to continue. So please bear with me. Let's go on for 10 or 15 minutes more. There's a few things that I want you to see. Look at this. This is just the property, plant and equipment line item, okay, that we've disclosed. Property, plant and equipment, look at the first one, C1, 537,500. Look at all the marks that you can get as an example for something as simple as this, okay? And if you actually forgot about the intercompany transaction, which I do not want you to do because it's clearly one of the additional information items, at least you still have, look at the first 4 half marks. You've got 2 out of 4.5 by just writing down the information given in the question. And then to take into account the intercompany transaction of property, plant and equipment, 4.5 marks. Ladies and gentlemen, don't tell me this is difficult, okay? Because if we ask you a statement of financial position, look there, already 4.5 marks for something as simple as this. Okay. A few points from the May-June 2020 exam that we've asked, and again, if you looked at the bottom in the slides to come, see all items highlighted with a red block like this. If this is not specifically red, but it's reddish, so this one that looks like red, this is the one you need to look at. Okay. So as an example, we're asking this question. You can go and read the rest in your own time. Blah, 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 blah. Request you the proof of goodwill method. And we actually gave this proof of goodwill method to the students in the question. Okay, and then at the bottom there, we said, indicate clearly if your answer is a gain or a gain on bargain purchase or goodwill. Okay, just hold on 1 second. I just want to take a sip of water. Okay, so we asked you, use this template and complete it for us. And then we say, indicate clearly if it's a gain or a gain on bargain purchase or goodwill. Okay, then it's easy. You use what we give you. Okay, as an example, look here, 8.5 marks. I mean, normally the consideration is given to you 1 million. Easy mark. Okay, non-controlling interest, I said to you earlier, you need to know that because normally it's a lot of marks. Why I'm saying a lot of marks, you can see there it's only 1.5 out of the 8.5. But look at the line below it, less net assets acquired, 5. And that 1,685,000 is used in your NCI. So actually the NCI counts almost 6.5 here because you need the net assets if we ask you to calculate this. Okay, and then look there at the bottom, adhere to the required format, 1 mark. So just by reading what we ask you and using what we give you 1 full mark. Okay, net assets acquired, all these things are given to you. Share capital retained, and you need to know this. And then obviously in the information given, there was something where we said, okay, but the machinery had a certain carrying amount, but the fair value was something different. And then you need to know, you need to adjust for the revaluation, and then the line below that, the tax effect of it. And the same with land, and the same with the tax effect of that. Okay, and the contingent liability and internal trademark was 2 given amounts. Okay, the next question was prepare only. Okay, so I highlighted because we say to you only. the pro forma journal interest to account for the intra-group inventory transaction between Samson and Connex. Okay, and then we say to you refer to paragraph 3. So there was a specific paragraph where we asked this, where we gave information about this intra-group inventory transaction. Then students went on and they did the journal entry for the inventory and other journal entries as well. If we ask you only for a specific journal, only show that journal. And then at the bottom, journal narrations are required. In this specific question, we said, show us the narration. So explain to us after the journal what this journal is about. In some questions, we will say it's not necessary. Journal narrations can be ignored. Then if you put it there, you just waste time. So read carefully. So this was the journal. So look there in total at the bottom, 9 marks. The line above that, narrations, 1 mark. So by just listening to what we said, 1 mark, easy mark. Okay. And then the other stuff, as an example, if you look at the first journal is revenue and cost of sales, you always need to know that you need to eliminate the revenue and cost of sales, the total amount. And by just getting the correct amount and the correct debit and credit, we say we give you a balancing mark. Okay. So that balancing mark, sorry, even if your accounts were correct, the revenue and cost of sales, but your amount was wrong, we will still give you that balancing mark. Because the first, the debit 175,000, we gave you for the 25,000 and the 7. Whatever that was, you can go and read the information in the question. Okay. So can you see then in journal 3, you will always have to think of tax. Okay, except for if we say ignore any tax consequences. And by just using the information in the second journal and account for the tax on that unrealized profit, you get 2.5 easy marks. Look at journal 3, 2.5 marks by just using your unrealized profit, even if you were totally wrong. And you know, okay, but because there was unrealized profit in this intercompany transaction, you need to know, okay, there was profit that was not really profit for the group. I'm going to take out the profit. If I take out the profit, there's less profit. If there's less profit, there will be less tax. That's why you will credit your income tax. And if you credit income tax, you debit deferred tax. Okay, 2.5 marks for something very straightforward. Part C, prepare the consolidated statement of profit or loss and other comprehensive income of S Limited for the year end 31st March 2021. Look there at the top for just writing down that heading, 1 mark. Okay. Then something else, I said to you earlier, the share of profit in associate or joint venture or whatever the case may be, and the non-controlling interest, that counts a lot of mark. This share of profit in associate, 3.5 marks. Okay. All the amounts that you see there in the calculation, you can go and look at it at the end, is just the revenue plus other income, less cost of sales, less other expenses, less income tax, blah, blah, blah. You can go and check it in your own time. Multiply by the percentage shareholding, the 25%. All those things were given to you in the question, straightforward, easy. Okay. And then the same with non-controlling interest. Okay. If you look there at the bottom, again, 6.5 marks. Okay, I said to you earlier, normally 10, 12, whatever the case of marks might be, sometimes less like in this case, but I promise you, if I'm going to look at the whole question paper of May, June 2022, okay, there's going to be a non-controlling interest thing in question 1 and in question 2. And most probably there was 6.5 or 8 marks there as well. Then it's the 8 of question 2 plus the 6.5 here. It's 14.5 marks in the total exam just for non-controlling interest. Okay. And again, this non-controlling interest is amounts given of the subsidiary, the profit plus the other income, the revenue plus the other income, blah, blah, blah. And there the carryover marks will now be for intergroup transactions, for example, or additional information. And then again, multiply by 30% at the end. The non-controlling interest shareholders percentage. Okay. Please, ladies and gentlemen, this is not difficult. I'm telling you, I'm warning you now, non-controlling interest will be a lot of marks in the exam. it will be at different places, whether we asked goodwill. Oh yes, sorry, if I can just go back. It was in this question. There's non-controlling interest. Remember I said to you earlier, 1.5 marks plus the 5. There's 6.5 marks here as well for the non-controlling interest in this question. Okay, in part A. Now we're in part C, and there's something more marks. Okay. Just one step back. At the bottom of a statement of profit or loss and other comprehensive income, you always have this profit. As an example, now here, look here, profit for the year 1,999,000. Then we always say you need to do the allocation or split, or whatever you want to call it, the attribution of that profit to say, okay, but that profit was now 100% of the parent and subsidiary. We need to now split it to say, okay, but what belongs to the owners of the parent and what belongs to the non-controlling interest holders? And that's what you do here at the bottom. And that NCI will always count a lot of marks. And then the remaining balance is what belongs to the owners of the parent. That's always a balancing figure. And you still get marks. Even if your non-controlling interest is totally wrong, you still get that marks if those two line items of you balance to the 1.999951 amount. Again, I'm going to repeat myself. If there's anything in the slides or this class that I've said that you don't understand what I'm trying to explain to you, you're really more than welcome to contact me, set up a Teams meeting with me, or to send me an email to the course email address, and we can gladly assist you, me or any of the other lecturers. Okay, multiple choice questions. Normally in a question paper, it's between 2 and 5 marks. It can be a little bit more. It will not be less than 2. Do not leave it open, please. Okay. Prepare all the pro forma consolidation journal entries, blah, blah, blah. Journal narrations not required. Okay. So there's your journals. Obviously, if you've included narrations, you'll be wrong. The next one I just want to show to you, we can ask something different as well. Do not stress. In this one, we ask, prepare an email to blah, 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 blah. You can go and read it in your own time. And then at the end, we said, discuss the correct accounting treatment on each error identified. And we give you this 2 headings, the table that we want you to answer in, to say this is the error that you've identified, and on the right, this is your proposed rectification. And then we said, if you look at the paragraph again at the end, please show all your calculations. Okay. So there's my email, because we said prepare an email. There's the layout of my email. Look there at the top right hand side, 1 mark, because you answer what we ask. We said prepare an email. You've prepared an email. Okay. And then we go down, and then there's marks for all the things that we given to you. I'm not going to go through this. You can go through this in your own time. This is just information that we've given to you. And there's examples of the errors. Okay. And then the proposed rectification. So please, I'm not showing this to you so that you think here they're going to ask a question like this. This is just for you to learn a principle and to learn something else that's asked on a different way and how you should handle it. And obviously inside there in here there's basic principles as well. So it would be good for you to go through it, because you will learn some basic principles. Okay. I said there at the bottom, all calculation must be shown, and amounts must be rounded to the nearest rand. We always say that, and that's why I'm saying refer to your calculations. Ladies and gentlemen, if anything is not clear of the slides, of any of the previous classes, of everything in the module, that's why we're here. Please contact us and ask us. Okay. There's not too much time left before 2 November when the exam will start, but there is enough time for you, if there's small things that you don't understand, to get on top of it. So please contact us. And that's all from my side. Oh, there's something else just from my side. Put in the hard hours, work hard. Okay, make sure you work now, from now until 2 November. Then you know you passed this module, and you do not have to sit with this next semester again. all of the best for the exams. Good luck. Look out on Mayonisa. There might be one more class that will be presented by the module leader, Mr. Edwin Mashaba. I'm not 100% sure yet, but just look on the announcements on Mayonisa. If there will be a next class, then it might be next week, Tuesday. So from my side, I hope you have a good evening. Maybe just to jump back here, you can just show me, raise your hands. Did this class help you? If the class help you, can you? Okay, thank you so much. If there's anything, I just need to quickly stop this recording. So from my side, have a good evening. I will be on Teams for 2 more minutes if there's any questions, but I'm just going to stop the recording of the class.